All right, folks, welcome. This is Tripathi with Digital Sparx Marketing, and today we're going to be talking about a super critical, important topic, and that is website migration. And I have with us Samantha.
Hi, guys.
And Samantha is with Investis Digital. And Samantha, you've done this, but site migration, and I think it seems pretty basic to most people, but it's not. And I'll tell you my personal story. I used to work for Discover, and Discover bought a domain name called discover.com for $20 million. But we were still on discovercard.com. I'm talking 2008, by the way.
Probably a lot easier back then, right?
No.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm antiquated, sorry. But the issue was, how do you migrate the site, right? So our developers thought, yeah, they can just flip the switch. But that's not true. So we created a bunch of processes. But I would like you to tell me, what are some of the processes involved when it comes to website migration?
So website migrations, just like Bob quoted his own experience, it's really become this huge trend that whether you're a business and acquiring other businesses and trying to consolidate, or it can be as simple as moving from HTTP to HTTPS to be secure nowadays, or changing your content and hierarchy and architecture of your actual site currently and possibly redesigning, right? There's 1,000,002 reasons you could be changing, but when there's the movement of page A to page B and you want to keep your valuable traffic, your valuable authority, and ultimately keep those conversions, it's very critical to have a migration strategy. So I like to preach that 2/3 of your time should be invested in actually creating a proper pre-migration strategy. That way you're mitigating any risk. You're not going to drop in the search engine results. You're not going to drop with your traffic and possible conversions in business, right? So I think everybody, whenever there's like migrations happening, they get caught up in the aesthetics of it, like, ooh, we're redesigning and it's going to look so pretty and here's our branding of merging all this together. But what people need to remember is that there's actual performance factors too. And those performance factors are what we need to be focusing on. So making sure that your website's in a really healthy stance with search engine optimization, making sure like your backlinks are, still firing away and that you've reconnected those. So I think those are some of the key things, and making sure that, again, you're mitigating that risk. Then you can launch and go live. That's the easy part. The hard part is making sure that you've got everything set up correctly in the forefront.
So, like when you talk to developers, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to do, a 301, right? And that's it. And that's what they think is flipping the switch.
Right.
But as I understand, and you know very well, it's a pre, during, and post thing. So what is the pre? How do you prep that?
Well, I'm talking today at Digital Summit, just 30 minutes to give people that checklist.
Right.
So I can't rattle it off the top of my head, Bob, but there are a lot of factors that will make sure that your site is healthiest to relaunch, and there are tools out there to allow you to check if your redirects are firing correctly. So I usually shout out things like Screaming Frog, crawling your site. I think you get actually a couple hundred free uses of it before you even have to buy a license of that tool. That's just one way you can check where your best practices stand on your site, what kind of redirects might be necessary as you change up your content and hierarchies. And then from there, http status.io will actually allow you to also check if 301 redirects, like what those chains look like, if you've got too many redirects, or if everything's firing correctly.
Nice.
So those are just a couple that I like to shout out, and hopefully people can take away and start implementing if they didn't already know so.
So, and what is the time frame? Like, you talked about SEO, but for example, it's not just flipping a switch, right? So how much time should people allocate before that they do this kind of planning, like 30 days, 60 days?
My favorite is when people come to me and they go, oh, we're redoing our site and we're making it brand new and it's going to launch in 3 months and we're just starting. And I literally laugh, and I don't mean to be rude, but it's just not realistic.
Yeah.
If you've got a larger scale site, like I said, you might spend up to 13 months just with this pre-migration strategy and mapping everything out. And that's pretty average. Right now, our company, Investis Digital, is working with a company that's moving 122 websites into one. That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
So with that, you can imagine they are a year to a year and a half out with just planning and making sure everything is aligned before ever even getting to possibly like building the wireframes and actual design elements. That should
Right.
be something that's almost last on that list before then you set it live. So start first with like the strategy elements, understand your content strategy as well. That way you don't have to rebuild a site based
Yeah.
on content you didn't know you were going to have yet. Test for those health factors of your search engine optimization. Then start to think about the design elements, you know, and how that user behavior is playing a factor.
So when you're migrating, just to check off what you mentioned, is you got to talk about your redirects, your SEO, your internal linking,
Yep.
your branding, your design, obviously. What other factors are there? Did we cover everything?
I think we covered
yeah,
everything.
and the
I
tools.
mean,
yeah, sorry.
the what?
And the tools that you
Tools,
mentioned.
exactly.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
mean, everybody's in their own kind of stance because every migration
Yeah.
is for a different reason. It could be super simple, like the HTTP to HTTPS, or it could be very complex, and you could be working with several global sites. And at that point, then you're dealing with hreflang tags
Right.
too to make sure like different foreign languages are aligning and being read by the search engine. So it depends on the complexity, but high level, I think we touched upon everything, but just
Yeah.
remember to be realistic with the timeline and expectations of when something can relaunch. It's probably not going to be tomorrow if you're just starting out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Matt Cutts back in the day used to suggest about SEO is when you're migrating, and that's what I did at Discover when we migrated from Discover Car to Discover.com, is you take your content in piecemeal.
Right.
So is that what you would recommend too?
100%. You got to start with the content, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's the foundation of everything. It's why your website exists.
Right.
And so to host this content, make sure you know what content's going to be there. If
Yeah.
you've got outdated content, start to address what you might want to refresh, what you might want to delete, and then what you're definitely keeping.
Yeah.
And so we like to say keep, combine, delete. And that'll help too, understanding how you're formatting your website, and then again, what wireframes you're building.
Nice. Good. So one one last question before I let you go, is people are still doing these micro sites. What's wrong with them?
I don't know. I think people are still hung up that it's like this easy fix, right? They're like, oh, let's throw up a microsite and it'll solve everything.
Yeah.
But what they're not understanding is that Google really cares nowadays about one authoritative domain.
Yeah.
One. And, as directors too, do you really want to be splitting up your time and resources and money across
Yeah.
multiple websites? No. So there are ways to be strategic with one website to make it impactful for different business goals and, to not confuse people. But again, setting it up correctly with a strong content strategy first, I think, is that foundation.
This is great. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Bob.
for
It's been a
doing this.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, folks, for tuning in.